One thing you can always count on the mainstream media is that they will always tell you a bald-faced lie when it comes to facts in a story. They have an agenda, and it is that agenda which they will adhere to. Before I get started, I want to tell you that you all know that Baltimore is a distraction, right? Hillary Clinton is drowning. She's about to be indicted and thrown in jail, and then all of a sudden Baltimore comes into play. How is it that one seemingly unimportant man is killed by police? It happens every day, right? Oh, I'm sorry. If white people don't understand this, police killing black people happens several times in a day. This is nothing new. This is nothing exciting. It happens. But let's get into this. The truth about Baltimore. After Baltimore police and a crowd of teens clashed near the Madawan Mall in northwest Baltimore on Monday afternoon, news reporter describes the violence as a riot triggered by kids who had been itching for a fight all day. But in interviews with Mother Jones and other media outlets, teachers and parents maintain that police actions inflamed a tense but stable situation. The funeral of Freddie Gray, a 25-year-old black man who died in police custody this month, had ended hours earlier at a nearby church. According to the Baltimore Sun, a call to purge, a reference to the 2013 dystopian film in which all crime is made legal for one night, circulated on social media among school-age Baltimoreans that morning. The rumored plan, which was not traced to any specific person or group, was to assemble at the Madawan Mall at 3 p.m. and proceed down Pennsylvania Avenue towards downtown Baltimore. The Baltimore Police Department, which was aware of the purge call, prepared for the worst. Shortly before noon, the department issued a statement saying it had received credible information that members of various gangs had entered into a partnership to take out law enforcement officers. When school let out that afternoon, police were in the area equipped with full riot gear. According to eyewitnesses in the Madawan neighborhood, the police were stopping buses and forcing riders, including many students who were trying to get home, to disembark. Hello, illegal. Cops shut down the local subway stop. They also blockaded roads near the Madawan Mall and Frederick Douglass High School, which is across the street from the mall, and essentially corralled young people in the area. That is, they did not allow the after-school crowd to disperse. Megan Harris, a teacher at a nearby school, described on Facebook what happened. Quote, "Police were forcing buses to stop and load all of their passengers. Then Frederick Douglass High School students in huge herds were trying to leave on various buses but couldn't catch any because they were all shut down. No kids were yet around except about 20 who looked like they were waiting for police to do something. The cops, on the other hand, were in full riot gear, marching towards any small social clique of students. It looked as if there were hundreds of cops. The kids were standing around in groups of 3 or 4, Harris said in a Facebook message to Mother Jones. Quote, "They weren't doing anything. No rock throwing, nothing. The cops started marching toward groups of kids who were just milling about." A teacher at Douglass High School, who asked not to be identified, tells a similar story. Quote, "When school was winding down, many students were leaving early with their parents or of their own accord. Those who didn't depart early," she says, "were stranded. Many of the students still at school at this point," she notes, "wanted to get out of the area and avoid any purge-like violence. Some were requesting rides home from teachers, but by now it was difficult to leave the neighborhood. Quote, "I rode with another teacher home," this teacher recalls, "and we had to route our travel around the police in riot gear, blocking the road. The majority of my students thought what was going to happen was stupid or were frightened at the idea. Very few seemed to want to participate in the purge. A parent who picked up his children from a nearby elementary school says via Twitter, quote, "The kids stood across from the police and looked like they were asking them, 'Why can't we get on the buses?' But the police were just gazing. Majority of those kids aren't from around that neighborhood. They need those buses and trains in order to get home." He continued, "If they would have let them children go home yesterday, would have even turned out like that." Meg Gibson, another Baltimore teacher, described a similar scene to Gawker. Quote, "The riot police were already at the bus stops on the other side of the mall, turning buses that transport the students away, not allowing students to board. They were waiting for the kids. Those kids were set up. They were treated like criminals before the first brick was thrown. With police unloading buses and with a nearby metro station shut down, there were few ways for students to clear out." Several eyewitnesses in the area that afternoon say the police seemed to arrive at Madone anticipating mobs and violence prior to any looting. At 3:01 p.m., the Baltimore Police Department posted on its Facebook page, quote, "There is a group of juveniles in the area of Madone Mall. Expect traffic delays in the area." But many of the kids, according to eyewitnesses, were stuck there because of police actions. The Baltimore Police Department did not respond to requests for comment. Around 3:30, the police reported that juveniles had begun to throw bottles and bricks. 15 minutes later, the police noted that one of its officers had been injured. After that, the violence escalated and rioters started looting the Madone Mall, and Baltimore was in for a long night of trouble and violence. But as the event is reviewed and investigated, an important question warrants attention. What might have happened had the police not prevented students from leaving the area? Did the department's own actions increase the chances of conflict? As Megan Harris put it, quote, "If I were a Douglas student that just got trapped in the middle of a minefield by cops without any way to get home and completely in harm's way, I'd be ready to pop off too." On social media, eyewitnesses chronicled the dramatic police presence before the rioting began. Now let me add a little bit to say that there are other eyewitnesses that said that police would corral students, meaning they would surround students, 2 and 3 students, with about 20 police each, and then they would insult the students. And this happened over and over and over and over and over. It wasn't the students who were doing anything. Now, I know some of you are going to say, but there was a call for this purge. There's also calls for meeting in Walmarts, and police have responded to these things, but did nothing, and nothing happened. There have been national calls on Twitter, on Facebook, on anybody with an iPhone for national calls to do something at a certain place. And police have come and nothing has actually happened. People play practical jokes on social media all the time, especially hacker groups, people who call themselves anonymous. And anonymous is not one type of group. Anonymous is anybody can call themselves anonymous. Have sent out messages on social media to pretend as if something is going to happen. People show up and nothing happens. Police show up and nothing happens. In this situation, you have eyewitnesses accounts that police showed up before students even got out of school, and they pulled people off of buses, meaning the buses were already headed home. The students were already headed home on the bus, and the police stopped the buses and pulled the students off. So we're talking about a logistical plan for the police to congregate the students at the mall when the students were actually leaving the mall. And we have countless evidence that other police departments from outside of Baltimore showed up that day. The police and the politicians of Baltimore, although they were arresting local Baltimoreans, said on all of their outlets that they saw outside agent provocateurs that were showing up. This was a staged event, and of course, white America is going to see nothing but black America and say, oh, look, they did something. White America is so ignorant of the CIA, of the FBI, of other secret organizations who show up to these places and start doing things. There was a peaceful, all-white march a couple of years ago demonstrating for something. Everybody in the march who belonged to the actual group were all peaceful. They were singing and marching. That's it. People started throwing bottles and Molotov cocktails, and the marchers turned on those people, pinned them down, and said, you're not a part of this group. Who are you? They were immediately found out. The notion that you can say that there were gang members who were hurting police will of course fly with white America until such time as I report in all of the reports that I've done about Baltimore so far that the Crips and the Bloods actually came together and declared peace and were actually protecting buildings. Now, how can the Crips and the Blood come together to declare peace and protect buildings, and the media reports that it's the gangs that are harming police? I say that's a bald-faced lie, but white America is only going to believe the bald-faced lie because that is the attitude and the understanding of how black people work. Black gang member, it must mean that they are up to no good. It was the gang members that were protecting buildings, stores. So you can't have gang members coming together, having a peaceful resolution, protecting the buildings, and yet part of them are destroying buildings and killing police or trying to kill police, trying to harm police. No, it makes no sense until you understand there were outside forces, and the police and the mayor and the politicians of Baltimore said so. But the media wants to keep promoting this stupid idea that black people are animals, black people are animals, black people are animals, and white people just feed on it. Oh, they just dine on it. Oh, it's dessert to them. Oh, yes, yes, those evil black people. Yes, they're always rioting and looting. Meanwhile, downtown Baltimore are 10,000 peaceful marchers that go completely unreported. It's a mad conspiracy, and you can lay this right smack dab at the feet of the Baltimore police. 6 people shouldn't just be charged. You should charge the entire police force of Baltimore with instigating, causing, and fomenting a complete riot of the city. And people are saying that, oh, I can't believe these 6 policemen are being indicted. There's a rush to judgment. No, there is not a rush to judgment. This police department is the same police department that was already under investigation by the district attorney and the state's attorney. They were already under investigation. Already. Before this entire incident occurred. This department has been the source of many, multiple cases of police brutality, and millions upon millions have been paid out due to this police department. This rough ride in particular was the source of many court cases against the police department. Tens of millions of dollars were paid out, and you had paralyzed black men who sued the police and won in court. This is not new. This is not a rush to judgment. Freddie Gray suffered from a ruptured spinal column and a collapsed larynx. Doctors looking at these facts have already concluded that it was a homicide. The city's medical examiner determined that it was a homicide. Outside doctors have also parroted these findings. The information is available online if you care to look it up. But of course, the state's attorney is black, and a female. Social media, of course, is going to have their own quote-unquote facts and want to say that this is a rush to judgment. If anything needs to be purged, it is that the police department of Baltimore. It needs to be shut down. A national search for good policemen from top to bottom needs to staff that police department. Millions of taxpayers' dollars have already been paid in court cases, including to a 70-year-old woman, black woman, who was also brutalized by the Baltimore Police Department. We are not talking about a group of fantastic individuals. They instigated the riots, they murdered that poor guy, and come to find out, there was no probable cause to even stop Freddie Gray. There was no crime being committed by the man. But social media wants to say that, oh, he was a drug dealer, he was in the middle of a drug deal, blah, blah, blah. And of course, then the conclusion is, oh, he was a drug dealer, he was scum, he deserved to die. And these are coming from the mouths of Christians. If I were the Pope of all churches, I would excommunicate all of you. You can't call yourself a Christian and say something that foolish. The boy was guilty of nothing and the police had no right to stop him in the first place. The boy was innocent. The boy was fine. When he got out of the van, he was not breathing. They tried to have a witness corroborate the police version of the story, but the witness in particular got onto the van